We're on Facebook now. Hey.
Oh, shoot. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Portable Trevor here, and today we have a very special guest. He was one of my favorite professors in college. Please welcome Jeff Salyer. How's it going?
Hey, Trevor, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We were just talking about it. 3 years since you graduated. That's an
Yeah, it
eternity.
came up on. Yeah, it feels like it was just a year ago since I graduated, and it came up on my time up. It was like, you graduated college 3 years ago, and I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, it blurs for us too. So when we're teaching or when we're mentoring and that kind of thing, we see students come in, but it's like a constant flow of students coming in. And so when they leave, you lose track of time. A good thing for social media, you can kind of keep up with what you're doing. But man, we do lose time awful quick when it comes to students graduating. So I would have been like, yeah, you graduated like last year, right? And oh, I've been out for 5 years. I was like, oh, I had no clue. But yeah, it's a little strange.
That's wild. And what have you been doing during all this quarantine? Because you wear a lot of hats in the job that you have.
Yeah, so I work at Lee University and I am a professor, but I'm part-time faculty. And my full-time role is the director of media services. And so that role includes creating content for the university, whether that's live content or that's produced pieces for promo or social media. We manage social media channels and I got a team that does that. So when coronavirus hit and colleges and businesses started, kind of closing or delaying, I was on road trip for Lee doing recruiting. And so I remember we were with Dr. Khan and he was like, hey, we're going to have to push spring break another day. And when we get back, we'll talk about it. So we got back that next Monday, and we ended up pushing it even more. And that sent us into kind of a crisis communication strategy. And we just jumped in and started creating content that was communicating with our students and their families, communicating with our alumni and our community about our situation as it dealt with coronavirus and how we were going to keep our students safe and how we were going to operate. So it was a lot of operational information. And then we did some other stuff that was more content that was warmer or that was inspiring or encouraging. And we mixed it all in, some funny stuff. We didn't want to take ourselves too seriously. In a tough time, people need to laugh still a little bit. And so we did that for several weeks during the coronavirus. We work. We were essential workers, and my office, we worked at safe distance from each other. We kept our circle really small within the Lee administration, and did a lot of work together over those 3 weeks just to make content to, again, to communicate what we were doing and just to make sure that everybody knew we were still around and still pulling for them.
And has that been difficult? Because during such a bleak time, it must be difficult to be like, oh, should we post this or should we stray away from topics like this? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because we did make some calls that were like, that's funny, that's great, but I don't know that fits right now at this time. And maybe we'll save it for later, and maybe we won't use it at all. And we did some of that. We did hold back on stuff, so you have to think about it. So we had a really good team that was talking through and strategizing and just deciding like tone and voice are really important when you are communicating during a crisis. But it's also okay to laugh at yourself a little bit. So we had one little video that went out that Dr. Khan, the president of Lee, who's been there for 34 years, was learning how to use Instagram. So one of our partners in this project, Clark Campbell, was showing him how to use it, or actually I think it was Dr. Van Hook. They're both kind of showing him how to use Instagram and Instagram stories. And, he kind of confused it for Snapchat. It was a really nice, authentic, endearing moment that was a little funny, and it showed the humanity that Dr. Khan was really trying to communicate with our students. That's where our students are. And so it was funny, but at the same time, it was endearing. So we left that up. We did a few other little funny things, but we tried to keep it pretty serious when it needed to be and light when it could be.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of brands, they seem to be doing the same thing. Like it was almost a meme at one point, like black and white video, piano, like we're all in this together. And I'm glad it seems like you guys didn't take that route. You kind of like addressed the situation and you said, here's what we're going to do.
we shared the video around with each other because I was working with an agency was kind of working with us. And I was like, look, this looks like everybody. And they'd made it. I think they'd made a video for somebody like that. But all these brands were going, we're here. It's time to come together. Be safe. And the voiceover, you could almost continue I said the same agency probably wrote a lot of those ads for those people anyway. But we tried to be we did do some inspirational stuff, but we really tried to be authentic in providing information more than just this kind of used opportunity for marketing or for positioning ourselves. We didn't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk to you also about like kind of where you came from and how you came to where you are now. So how did you get started in film and like content creating?
So that's really interesting. I was thinking about that today because I figured that question would come up. When I started college, I did not even think this was something I was going to do. I was actually planning on being a history major and teaching high school and coaching football. And I love history. It's one of my favorite things to read and to study and to consume. And so I just had a passion for it, but also had an aptitude for technical things. So like I ran sound. I worked in the AV at my high school and middle school before that. So I had an aptitude, but I didn't know it was something you could do for a career. And so when I went to Lee, I found out really fast that I did not want to do education. I didn't necessarily like high school. I thought I did. I did not like high school. Going back as a college student, as a potential teacher, was not fun to me. So when I changed majors to a telecom major, and through a lot of different meetings with professors and mentors and people I worked with, kind of found a niche in video production. So I spent probably 11 years doing video production right out of college at Lee. And it was great, but then I wanted to advance my career a little more, and I thought about grad school, and I had an opportunity to go to grad school. So when I went to grad school, I was introduced to a different side of film. I was introduced to a side that really was concerned about aesthetics, about history, theory, and the filmmaking process. Although I wasn't in a film school grad school program, I was more in a critical studies program. I began to appreciate the process of making film and the thought that goes behind it, and then the theory that governs it. So those were things that were really interesting to me. So my film history class really sparked an interest in that, and I started consuming older films and films that I wouldn't before. I mean, my movies and DVDs at the time, but they were popular films and comedies and fine films, right? They're okay films, but they're throwaway when you look at the great classics that are out there. I don't think I had a black and white film. I was like the typical college grad. I just didn't appreciate the fine things of film. So anyway, I found a love there and then went into wanting to make them too. And so I found some people, Miles Matsuno being the first person, and I just jumped in a project not really knowing what to do. I don't think any of us really knew what to do. We didn't have a film major at Lee at the time, and we just made a short film. It's about 20 minutes long. It's called Ella, and I co-produced it with a lot of guys that were my students at the time or who had worked for me. And man, what a great experience, and I got hooked. So the combination of studying film and then making a short film, this hooked me. And so from that point on, I just wanted to continue making films. So my full-time job is still making content for the university, but I've also been able to make films around that for the university as well. So that's kind of the story of how I got to being a filmmaker and a film professor.
Nice. And what about the process of, creating and making films is it that intrigues you so much?
I don't know. I think when I first started it, I think it was about the collaborative nature of it. I hadn't worked with that many people on one project at the same time. I think Ella had a crew of 20 or 25. And like I said, we were all rookies. So we were all doing different things and the same things. And we kind of got in each other's way. We didn't really know the formal way of doing things. And I think that kind of excited me, was to learn the formal way of doing things. And then also I think it still intrigues me is the collaborative process of it. So when I can work with a writer and a director and then eventually a cinematographer and then another producer or PAs, that really intrigues me and gets me going. And so I think that really, I like that. I also like the idea of story becoming more than something on the page. There's power in story on the page, but there's like superpower with story on the screen, because you can combine all these elements that you can't, that you can take from the imagination and off the page, and use audio and use music and use visual aesthetics, use visual cues and editing and cuts and acting and moments to create an emotional reaction in people, whether that's they're laughing about a funny moment, or they're crying, or they're contemplative, or they're angry. All those things matter, and I think film does that better than anything else. And so the process of getting it from the page or from the idea to the screen in front of an audience is thrilling. I don't know. I can't explain. There's been a few times where we've screened a film for the first time, no matter the size of the audience, and you just get this thrill when people laugh at the right spots, they react the right way, they cry. Those moments are really what drives the film. At least me, it drives a filmmaker when you can start telling stories that affect people.
Yeah, and for everybody watching, this guy right here is one of the reasons I'm really into film now, because I took 2 of his classes, and I think you're the only professor I had twice. So, like, your enthusiasm towards film and your knowledge towards it really gravitated me towards the subject. So, I also wanted to take this time to say thanks. What's some of the things that you enjoy, like, teaching whenever you're in the class?
I like teaching film history a lot. I think there's something to learn from history. I think there's something to learn from film history specifically for filmmakers, but also as a cultural artifact. I think we can learn a lot about ourselves and our progress or regress from the films that we make, or the films that become popular, or the stories that get told. And I also think we can predict what the stories are going to be, or how our culture is going to go. I'm also fascinated in film history with the industry, the film industry in itself, because of the way it was born, and then how you see things go now. Born from immigrants trying to be innovative and make a dime, into one of the largest industries, exporters in the world, is the film industry. Entertainment's a huge business, but film wasn't always a part of that business model, and it had to work its way through trials and troubles. And I think there's a lot of stories that can inspire young filmmakers or young moguls to continue pushing forward, because of the things that the people did in the past, and the adversity that they broke through. And so that's exciting to me. I love teaching film history, anything from silent film era all the way up through the 80s. We kind of get into the 80s a little bit. I got my Rocky shirt on, so we get to Rocky and some other stuff for our film history class. Then the other thing that really gets me going is teaching producing. I think it's where I have the most aptitude when it comes to film production. And so I love teaching, opening people's eyes to the process of filmmaking. A lot of people think that the director kind of runs everything, and what they don't understand, there's a producer that started the process way before the director even got involved a lot of the times. And the producer is the person, man or woman, who brings everybody together to the table to actually get the project done and get it on the screen. And that thrills me too. I just love doing that. And I love teaching students who don't know what a producer really does, how a producer operates, and the different ways that they have to work, both in the creative world and in the business world. Everything from story development and making notes on character to and final edits, notes on final edits, to marketing plans, budgets, scheduling, accounting, payroll. All that mess is in the producer's world, and I love opening students' eyes to that, because they don't understand that when you come into film school or when you come into school. And when they leave, a lot of times the comments I get are, I had no clue what a producer is. I do not want to be a producer, but now I have a greater respect for what a producer does. And some of them are like, I want to be a producer. I don't know that I can direct, like they're teaching us how to direct. But I know I can organize. I know I have an aptitude for that. So those two things in the film world really get me going. I just taught an Italian cinema class this last semester, which is my favorite genre, or my favorite kind of national film. And I've taught British cinema too, and I really love those. But there's something about American film history, Hollywood history, and then producing that are my favorites.
That's awesome. And I feel like the producer role is also a mystery to the common person because like I'll see people online, they'll see like a trailer and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, produced by Steven Spielberg, this movie's gonna rule." And I'm like, "Do you even know what that means?" Like he like organized it? Did he like
he brought money to the table? That's what that means a lot of times. I mean, producers and executive producers a lot of times will bring money. They raise the money for the film too. And so when you attach a big name like Spielberg, that's automatically going to bring with it some credibility for the story because you know that they've read the story, they like the story, they've helped the other producers develop what it's going to be, and they can almost assure it's going to make money. It's a business. So the producers are in the business of making money at the same time of creating art. So they're enabling artists to do their art, but they're also monetizing that in a way that can continue to happen. This is how you get a mix between really good independent films that have a lot to say and Transformers 8. You know, they're going to bank a lot of money because the producers know how to make the money out of them. But at the same time, they're trying to make some art most of the time. I think Steven Soderbergh is a great example of this. Like he makes all the Ocean's films and they're blockbusters. They got a huge ensemble cast, but he made his bones in independent film. And then he continues to make independent film in between the big blockbusters. So I like that. I like the Soderbergh method of filmmaking. But, you know, the Best Picture award goes to the producer, not the director.
That's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's a producer's award. It's that first day of class. Like, hey, Best Picture award is producer's award. So if you ever want to be a Best Picture winner, you got to be a producer.
That's a great point. And to go back to, you know, you said you're most passionate about film history. Why do you think it's important to learn about, you know, the black and white films and Singing in the Rain? I remember that was the first time I ever watched that film was in your class, was Singing in the Rain. I was like, really? A 50s musical? That sounds so lame. And then you showed it to me and I was like, this is amazing. And you explained to me like, hey, this is cool because of this. And then you went into all the production that went behind it and like Gene Kelly. And I was like, Gene Kelly's the coolest guy ever now just because you showed me that film. But yeah, like I feel like a lot of students can look at old films and kind of pass them off like, I don't need to, that's like irrelevant now. That's old cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a common misconception, and I blame parents for this. I'm just kidding. I think, you know, like Singing in the Rain is basically a documentary about the changeover from silence to talkies, but told in a funny narrative, fun way with a dance and a weird dance scene at the very end of the film that makes no sense, but Gene Kelly loved it, so they put it in. But I think we can learn a lot from old films, more from not necessarily technique, although there's a lot of technique that is born from these old films. You can't watch a modern film and not see the influence of something like Citizen Kane. You can't watch a modern romance film and not feel something like Casablanca. You can't watch a slapstick comedy film and not feel something like The General, Buster Keaton and The General, or Charlie Chaplin and City Lights, or any Harold Lloyd films. They all are like the forefathers of storytelling, cinematic storytelling. And you can go all the way back to Lumiere's and Edison's company. They were showing actualities, which were just basically slices of life, right? They put a camera out and they fed their baby, or they put a camera out and watched a train come into a train station. These are precursors to documentaries. They're precursors to reality TV, because it's people watching real people do things, right? And it was intriguing because the technological advance for the people at the time. It's intriguing now because we can see how the development of technique happened from those earliest days of no tripod, just putting a camera and mounting it up and letting things happen, to just a few short years later, they're creating complex narrative stories and moving the camera and having casts of thousands like D.W. Griffith did. So you watch that progression from the actualities until the blockbuster, and you can learn a lot about what the modern film industry does. Also, the general business practices of the film industry hasn't changed that much. We're in fact getting ready to see a return to a thing that happened before 1949. There was a process called vertical integration where the studios owned production, distribution, and the theaters. They owned all their own theaters. So they could control what movies went into the screens that got seen across the country. And so they had this kind of vertical. And so several companies controlled an entire industry, and they colluded with each other to keep others out. Does this sound familiar? This is what's getting ready to happen if Amazon buys AMC, or if Apple and Netflix buy movie theaters.
History repeats itself.
We have to learn from those mistakes, or at least those what happened then, to help us stave off maybe problematic things that are going to happen now. So we can learn a lot from the film history. Plus, these movies are actually really good. They're endearing. Just because it's black and white or silent doesn't mean it's great. If you don't cry in City Lights a little bit, or if you don't cry, which is a silent film with Charlie Chaplin, if you don't cry at the end of The Champ, man, you have no heart. So, these movies can be moving for sure.
Absolutely. And I've not really watched a whole lot of black and white films. I watched one in Miss Duke's class. She's a professor at Lee University too. I can't remember what it was called. It was a romantic comedy, but it was incredible. I was like, I would have never given this a chance if it wasn't for this class.
Yeah, you watched one is what you watched. So that's, for real. And that's part of my job as a film professor, is to expose students. They just want to go make films, like they want to be the next Chris Nolan, which is cool. But you got to learn what the others did before you. You got to be able to walk before you run. And so understanding the principles based on those early films are very important. And I love the fact I get to introduce things to people, like you got introduced to Singing in the Rain. I get to introduce all sorts of films to people. I get to introduce The Graduate to people. People are like, what? 1960. So there's some really good stuff out there that if you'll just go through these lists, Criterion Channel or Netflix, unfortunately, does a very poor job of curating classic films. Whereas there are other means to getting good classic films on streaming service, including Criterion, and there's a few others too.
Mm-hmm. I watched a video recently. You may have seen it. It's a really well-made video about watching black and white films. And a lot of black and white films, whenever you watch them in cinemas, they would have like a live orchestra playing. And that's like what made it really come alive. So whenever you watch a clip on YouTube or whatever, it's not like the same music that's playing. So it's just like, this isn't fun. But I would, apparently they still do those shows in certain theaters in America. And I would love to experience that one day.
Yeah, silent films had their own score that went along with it a lot of times. Sometimes it was just up to whoever the theater pianist or orchestra was playing. They'd kind of play along with the film. So they'd watch the film. There's no dialogue, and the music just helped drive it along a little bit, right? Well, Charlie Chaplin got into actually scoring the film, and he would do orchestra scores. And so he would require orchestras to play his music, and it went along with what happened on screen. And so it was just like modern day scoring. They just didn't record it because they didn't have the technology to do it. But they even included like sound effects in it too. When talkies came along, he did the same thing. He just recorded, instead of doing dialogue, he just did the music that way. And so his later films, or the films that are in the 1930s, all have this synchronized soundtrack to go along with it, with orchestration. But yes, there are these popular things where orchestras will play. I think I've seen them play like the Harry Potter, even modern films. That's really good because live music's incredible, and movie scores are really great to kind of get in, because music plays such a big part in the film experience.
Absolutely. What are some films that have really inspired you throughout the years?
So I can give you a list. These films I love. The Godfather being one of my all-time favorites. Godfather 1 and 2, I kind of combine them together. I love Rocky. I wrote my thesis on Rocky in grad school. I love Bicycle Thieves, which is an Italian film. Casablanca, Citizen Kane. Some of these sounds like, oh gosh, this guy just watches the same old, classic stuff. But I still love things like Chris Nolan. I love the Batman trilogy. I love Inception. Memento's great, so I'm a huge Nolan fan. I like Edgar Wright. I'm a big Edgar Wright fan.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are hilarious. I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I love some Hitchcock, some Psycho. So a lot of these films, The Graduate is one of my favorite films. So these are just most of them are classic films that may be underappreciated today. And my job is to expose people to them. So, anytime I can tell the story or go watch it in the theater, I'll go watch it in the theater.
So you did your thesis on Rocky, and I feel like anybody can watch Rocky and be like, "Oh, this movie's great. I see why it's great." But you've obviously done like a deeper analysis of Rocky. So what about Rocky appeals to you so much that you wanted to do your thesis on it?
You know, Rocky is just kind of like this everyday guy who has this struggle, and he's the classic hero, right? So heroes they have struggles they have to overcome, they have shortcomings, and they have a challenge they have to meet or they don't have to meet. They choose to whether they go on this journey or not. And Rocky wants to be something better than he is. And the whole point of Rocky is to prove to people that he's not a bum. I mean, he says that several times. I'm not a bum. And if anybody calls him a bum, he gets really upset about it. And so every one of these movies are about Rocky proving himself and proving to other people that he's not a bum. Sometimes it's proven to himself, like in the first Rocky. Sometimes it's proven to other people, like Adrian. Sometimes it's proven to the world that he's not a bum, even though he gets beat by Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. And then he wants to prove to Russia that the U.S. is not a bum, and Rocky IV, the greatest Cold War propaganda film of all time. So, but it keeps on going, and that he's this hero in his own journey, and Rocky is, I don't know, this appeals to me. So I followed all seven, well, I think at the time it was 6 movies, up to Rocky Balboa, where he went on the same journey and he just repeated himself over and over and over again because he never really got what he needed, which was this kind of internal peace with who he was. He always was trying to be something different than who he really was. And then by the end, he finds that. Now, when you get to Creed, then he really finds it. This is great. I love Creed. Creed's not in I finished my thesis a long time ago, over 10 years ago, but so Creed wasn't even in the works. And then we get to Michael B. Jordan performance in that, and Ryan Coogler directing it. I thought Creed was phenomenal. So I fell in love with Rocky all over again on that one. So that was my thesis. Now my dissertation was on Pixar. So I think it's kind of different worlds. I did a bunch of studying the rhetoric of Pixar and the American dream. So because it's hard to get into, but it was, so they're two totally different things, but I watched a lot of film to write those papers.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you what you thought about Creed too, because I'll never forget when I saw Creed. I got up the next morning bright and early, and I just went for a run and listened to the Rocky soundtrack. I was like, this movie just fires me up. And then the next week I went right back to not running or working out again.
Yeah, I love Creed. I love both Creed movies. I thought they were great. I think there's a Creed 3 coming out. I think they're talking about it anyway.
I have no idea what they would do.
Yeah, but I'm a huge Coogler fan and Michael B. Jordan fan. I have been since Sundance. I think it was 2012 I was there. I think it was 12 when Fruitvale Station came out, and met those guys at a forum. And man, they're just legit, genuine guys. They're good filmmakers, actor and director. And, I followed their career. So I like that part of the film. And, I'm a Rocky fan. So it's going to be hard to put anything out that I'm not going to like Rocky, except Rocky V, which I thought was horrific. But other than that, I'm just a huge fan.
Yeah. And what's it like going to a film festival like that? Because I feel like that's a lot of filmmakers' dreams is to go to a place like that, like Sundance.
Right. I've been fortunate to go as an attendee to Sundance 3 times. I think I went to South by Southwest 3 times as attendees. Now, that's not with any films in the festival, but I have been to festivals where we've had films in. So I've been to the Austin Film Festival where we had a film get in, Nashville. We've had film get in there. We've won several festivals, including Knoxville and a few regional ones. going to film festival is great because you get to see things that you might not see on the big screen in your hometown. You might get it on VOD or Vimeo at some point. But the main thing is about like meeting people and listening to their stories and collaborating. We've met a couple people that we actually hired as a DP. So one of the last I produced and co-directed or co-produced and co-directed a documentary about Lee University. And we met the DP of the short narrative that opens it up. We actually saw him at a film festival years before, and we tried to hire him for another project that we were going to do because we liked the work he did. He's local to Chattanooga, and that fell through. But this one, we knew we kind of wanted him, and he brought his gear, and man, it was a great experience. But we met him or we saw him at a film festival. So it's a talent scouting place. I think people can get inspiration at them. Even the small film festivals are nice because they treat you well. Everybody's a fan there. So you've got very positive crowds. So going to film festivals is great. Going to Sundance and South by are like nothing else though. I mean, you're talking multiple venues, films running all day long, really high quality films most of the time, and lots of people you meet. I've met tons of people at these festivals who we became Facebook friends or on Instagram, and they do good work and good projects, and you kind of keep up with their careers after that. And it's been great. I mean, and it's just fun to go to films. And I think my record's 4 films in a day at Sundance. So to go to 4 different films, I did get to eat in between. That'll exhaust you. By the time you get to that midnight screening, you are about dead on your feet for sure.
And this is something that I've talked a lot about on this show is connections and just meeting people. I don't consider myself a big success yet, but I contribute to where I am to, making those connections and meeting people. Like, filmmaking is not a solo game. If you think it is, then you're on the wrong business. So what advice would you give like up and coming filmmakers or just really anyone that's interested in that? Like, what would you tell them if they're saying like, oh, I don't need help, or it's hard for me to make connections with people?
Yeah, I mean, we run into that with students sometimes, and it's tough because connections are what drives you into the industry. It doesn't matter if you want to be an independent director or producer. You can't get the financing for a film without meeting people with money, right? You can't get a project made without meeting people who are willing to help you shoot or edit or do something. You can't do it on your own. There are people who do solo stuff, and that's fine, but it's really hard. If you want to get into the industry, like work, say, in Atlanta, and you want to go work on a big film production for Marvel or for Tyler Perry Studios or somebody, then you've got to do the meetings and start working your way up and get to know people and network. And those networking things happen by, trying to get a PA job, going to networking events, volunteering if you can on a set, being noticed by people, talk to people in a lot of different ways. What do you do? What do you work? If you're serving in a restaurant or you're a barista, you talk to people, you ask questions. This is how LA was built. This is how Atlanta is kind of starting to form. And once you start making projects and working with people, you kind of start now building your network up. And so when one of them or you get a gig that you can bring people on with you, then you bring people on with you. That doesn't mean you stop making stuff on your own too. I mean, I have a couple of friends that are producers in the Atlanta area who work as PAs, like producing PAs or set deck assistants or production design assistants. And on their free time, they're doing that work on their own. So we hired a guy named Chinzy, and Chinzy is a PA in the Hollywood or in the Atlanta scene, and he's a producer's PA. He wants to be a producer. He studied being a producer, but he's not going to be able to do that until he works up and meets the right people. So we wanted to produce a project, a pretty high dollar budget short film. And he was able to bring on people that he knew that worked in the industry that he met working in his PA job, and they made this project. Well, now this project goes on their reel, and they can show people, hey, we made this together. It's a period piece from 1918. It had a pretty decent budget. We have legit behind the scenes photos. And so then they can build on that to build the next video, and they work together. So once you kind of get that team working together, it can be very beneficial, mutually beneficial. As one of you gets a job, the rest of you could find yourselves working on that set as well. If you're wanting to be an individual content creator, you still need people to work with. You still got to have people to shoot, right? You can't make a film. You can, I guess, make a film where you act in it, write it, direct it, shoot it. It'd be very hard, right? You got to meet people. So it is a highly collaborative industry. Content creation is highly collaborative. It's very ego driven, but you got to find a way to work with people, use your skills and your aptitudes to work well with other people so that you can make good products and that you can tell stories. Remember, the story is the king.
Almost every story that I've heard whenever I meet someone that says like, oh, I was a PA on the set of Avengers, or I was this on this set, or I worked with this person, almost, and I ask them like, oh, how did you get that? Almost all of those stories start with, oh, well, I knew this guy or I knew this person.
Yep. Because when they're looking for people to hire, they're going to ask people's opinion. They would rather have somebody say, hey, I know this guy, he's a hard worker, than to go on one of the online sites and just pick somebody random and hope you get a good person. Even for a PA job. I mean, I know PA jobs, that's the kind of the starting line. And I got great advice from Chinzy. He gave great advice to my class. He talked to my class this year in producing. He said, be willing to do whatever. Be humble in what you do. Don't try to act like you know more than you know. Ask good questions to the right people at the appropriate times, and then that's kind of how you move forward. They'll ask you what you want to do, and you say, I want to be a producer. I'm learning to be a producer. You don't go to Atlanta and you meet somebody and go, what do you do? I'm a producer. What have you produced? Well, I'm working on it. So that makes you seem kind of pompous when you first start, right? I am a producer. You get a little more humble about it, unless you've produced something that they've heard of, then you're not a producer yet. That's okay though, because you are working towards, you're making those steps to the next thing. And so you can't, they say fake it till you make it. Well, that's great. Yes. To a point. Yes. But you also have to make sure you operate in humility, understand where you are and where you want to go. And these people can help you get you where you want to go.
Mm. And another piece of advice I would give to anyone that's starting out is, I feel like whenever I started, like especially when I was at Lee, I thought that to make a video or to make a film or whatever, you had to have this huge set. You had to have all these roles filled and everything. But what I learned is whenever you start out, all you need is yourself and a camera. That's all you need. And whatever gear you have is what works. And with that mindset that I came into Atlanta with, I joined this group called the Thunderdome here. And I made over like 20 films last year, which was awesome. They were just a minute, but they were films, and they helped me get so many jobs just because I was able to say, look at all these films that I made. I work at a DDP Yoga. That's where I work full time. And whenever they were like, can you show us some examples? And I was like, yes. And I just sent them everything that I made. And they were like, whoa, how did you make this much stuff? And I'm like, well, it's because I put the work in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, starting out on your own is really good. I just think you have to make sure that you're willing to collaborate with people. You're willing to take ideas from people and go with it. But when you start out and you got to build that reel, you got to do whatever it takes to build the reel, whatever it takes. So there's a guy on there that's a Lee grad, Adam. I don't know if you talked to Adam yet, Adam Nyes. And
oh yeah, we've had him on the show.
Okay, I thought I saw him on the show. Adam's making these killer Lego stop motion videos.
They're incredible.
Huh?
I said they're incredible.
Yeah. Do you know where the first one he made was?
Yeah, it was the painter for the Lee Film Festival, right?
Yep. You know what the second one he made was?
It was a Paul Kahn one, right?
It was the Lee University one. So I didn't have that skill, but he was like, I want to tackle this job. And he did it on his own, and he got some help. I mean, some people helped him with the project. We encouraged him. We provided the equipment that he needed and that kind of thing, but he did that on his own. He's turned those two little videos into like a very lucrative endeavor and venture with Lego themselves, so he's doing some ads and then that turned into a studio gig too, because he knows that he understands the stop motion and the kind of things like that. So starting on your own is great, but then be ready to make that move. And when you do make the move up, you are going to have to deal with people for sure.
Absolutely. And another thing I'd like to talk about is like building your niche is like, Adam is with, Lego films and everything. My thing that I've gotten a lot of gigs from is doing these 80s style videos. I love like throwing on a VHS filter or just doing these bright colors or just like borrowing storylines or story elements from like various 80s films and putting them into movies. Like I've gotten a lot of music video gigs from that where people are like, "Hey, I like your style. Can you do this for me?" And I feel like a lot of Lee students have developed their style like through courses at Lee, like while they're making their films. Whenever you first look at them, they're like, "This guy, that's okay," but then it like develops into something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody kind of has a style they like and they adopt. Miles has this really interesting style that he uses. He loves and kind of that soft focus and music. Music drives everything he does. Beecher is very pointed in his writing. It's got a Beecher running. It's also Professor at Lee. He's good. He's a great writer, and he brings it to screen. And his comedy is funny, but it's sharp, right? And he likes things to be kind of sharp, and that's his style. Matt Fisher, another Professor at Lee, he's got like a dark side to him. I mean, it's not like terror or horror dark, although maybe that's coming, but he's got dark comedy. His last Friend of a Friend is great because it's about a vegan who works in a pet crematory. That's a funny setup, but it's kind of dark. So everybody kind of has their own things. People do outdoor videos. People are really good at tour videos. People are really good at social media micro content. I like your stuff. I consume it all the time. I was just watching your Tony Hawk video, which I thought was really good and well done. And so everybody has, and so to make a confession, you post a lot of memes on your Instagram stories, or you used to a lot. And I'd skip through and I'd be like, I have no clue what any of it is or means. But it's kind of funny, and I kind of want to know more about it. And so you introduced me to some of these really out there, like it's not in my world, but it was interesting enough that I stuck with it, right? And even did some research on some of them. So everybody kind of
that's amazing.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember having your class whenever, I don't know why, I get a kick out of showing people memes or something that's just out of their realm and something that they just don't understand. And nothing would bring me more joy than showing Jeff something and him just shaking his head and walking away. Like I remember when the John Cena memes were big, and I'd be like, "Jeff, watch this," and he would take the time and just watch it, and then John Cena, and then he'd just shake his head and walk away, and I would get a kick out of that.
Now I have kids that are watching YouTube all the time, and they tell me memes, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm in the memeless generation, I guess. We have a few, but they're usually like Friends or no, I'm just kidding, Seinfeld.
Seinfeld was like, I consider that the birth of, like, the 90s was almost the birth of memes in my opinion. Like people think of like, a picture with text and everything, but memes were created like well before that, because I mean, what do people use with GIFs and like all sorts of things like that? It's Seinfeld. People use like catchphrases and everything that like Kramer and George and Jerry said.
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, catchphrases have been around. It's the memes are getting a little more complicated, or from more obscure places, and then you kind of gotta like. Then it's just funny to see it. Like, I don't know, like the Karen meme right now is like, but there's multiple Karen memes, right? And I don't remember seeing that video, but that looks like it could be, I don't know. So this old guy doesn't follow him very well. I have to ask people around me. I'm like, hey, what does this mean? What is this from?
I mean, the magic of memes is it's basically like a big inside joke. And if you're in on it and you get it, then that's what makes it funny and that's what makes it enjoyable. And that's why people like them.
Yeah, I tend to respond with GIFs a lot on Twitter. Like that's my thing. And some of them I don't even know where they came from, or I'll know it comes from Community. I didn't watch Community, but I know this person watch this community, and this is going to mean something to them. So I'll be like, yeah, I want to feel like I'm relevant because I'm going to send you a community gift, and I have no clue what it means or whatever.
Do you find it hard to like relate to your students sometimes, like with, because I feel like humor is constantly changing. I think you're a pretty funny guy. Like you were really enjoyable to have as a professor, but like since from the beginning you started teaching to like now, how has like humor like changed since you've started?
Sarcasm never goes away. So I'm fluent in sarcasm for sure. It changes. I have shifted into dad joke mode. Apparently, I don't think they're dad jokes, but I get told constantly. I get the eye roll. I have an employee who boos me sometimes when I tell a bad joke or a pun. I tend to do puns, but they're all like I don't ever plan anything. It's all improvisation or just inspired in the moment. And so I try to be. I don't always try to be funny. Sometimes I try to be funny in moments when I shouldn't be, and it kind of breaks everybody's concentration. But I try to keep up with the cultural references as much as I can, just because part of my job is managing social media. So I'm consuming a lot of social media. So I do have the ability to keep up with some of the cultural references. There's so many now, it's hard to keep up. And, I listen to what the students talk about, and then I'll do a little research here and there to make sure I'm not saying something dumb. I'll quote a Drake song, or Kanye, when he came out with his worship album, I might, I'll yell Chick-fil-A out in the middle of something. So, I try to be culturally relevant. And some people think that's funny, and some people think I'm just probably a dork, and that's okay too. There, so.
I think a big problem with saying every pun is a dad joke, I think that needs to die. Because a dad joke is, something a dad would say to their kid. Like, I'm hungry. Hi, hungry. I'm dad. That's a dad joke. Not every pun is a dad joke.
That's true. But I use those on my kids. So they become dad jokes when I use them on my kids. My daughter just rolls her eyes. Now, one of my favorite things to do with my daughter now is she's on the dance team for her middle school. So when she's practicing dance, I will try to practice the dance moves too. My wife will videotape it, and it just drives my daughter crazy. And I keep threatening I'm going to do it at an actual performance at a ball game. And I did one time her 6th grade year, up on the top row, and I just kind of gave it this number, and she was watching me. I was like, you're not even a teenager yet, and you're already cutting your eyes at me. But I try to be funny with them too. But like I said, I do tell dad jokes because I'm a dad. I got 2 kids, and I love it. I love being goofy.
I bet. That's one thing I've looked forward to whenever I have kids. I'm gonna be like, they are going to hate me by the time they are teenagers. And,
yeah, pretty much.
He agrees. My favorite like meme right now that's people are like, oh, these are just dad jokes, or like the miscommunication memes. It was like a dude at like a car salesman, and the guy's like, cargo space, and he's like, no, cargo land. Just dumb. There's the head shake. There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
My favorite meme right now, not that you asked, is it says my plans in 2020.
That's a good one.
I live that life. Like I understand those memes very, very well. I think everybody does right now. So I'm never funny enough to like come up with my own to make. I just don't think I'm that funny, but I laugh at those. I had a friend that ran the Boston Marathon the year that it was just nasty weather, like the worst weather I ever had. And he posted my plans, and he's running. It's a great picture of him running in the rain. And at the very end of that race, he collapsed at the finish, like on the finish line, and all these people are helping him. He says, it was my plans. He's running in 2020. He's on the ground, and they're helping picking him up. And I just laughed. Man. I'm a runner, and it just spoke to me. It was also almost like a church moment. But I like those right now. I wish I had come up with a good one for myself, but I just can't.
I didn't know this conversation would turn into memes, which I am not opposed to that ever happening on my show.
It would because I was going to make that reference to not understanding any of your memes and then trying to figure it out.
Well, I can tell you what they're called later, but since you're a Lee professor, it'd be inappropriate what they're called. But it's just this specific type of humor on the internet that I just absolutely love that I post. It's not like inappropriate or anything, but the name of it is. So I'll tell you about it later. So
Okay.
that's pretty much why nobody gets them, is because I find it hilarious and nobody gets them. But anyway, to move the conversation forward, you're also a runner, and can you tell me about that? Because I feel like I'm always fascinated by people that are really into running culture, because a lot of people just hate running and they hate the idea of it, and you like thrive in it. You participate in all these marathons and all these charity runs. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been running seriously for like 5 years.
Mm,
I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I didn't really love it. What got me into running was a community of people who ran and being invited into this community. It first started with a group from my church, and then we ran a half marathon together. That was like, I ran a 5K and then I ran a half marathon. And then we ran this thing called Ragnar, which is a relay race. So like a 200-mile relay race from Chattanooga to Nashville in 20, I think it's in 30 something hours. And you just kind of leap over each other and run 3 legs. It was great. And I had a good time. And I kind of got out of it a little bit. And then I got back into another group, and we decided to run a full. So they ran a full marathon. And then I kind of quit for a year because that takes a lot out of you. Like it was killer. Your first full, and I wasn't prepared the best in the world. I did okay, but it wasn't the greatest experience. Then I got pulled into another group in our town called the Half Warriors, and I found kind of a consistent group of men and women who run every morning and almost every morning, and just fell in love with the community aspect of it, and then just began to run all these races. So half marathons were fine. At one point, I'd run more marathons than half marathons. I think I'm at 7 marathons now. I just did one in Washington, D.C. in October, which was terrible. It was the worst. It rained for 3.5 hours, and then the last hour it was burning up hot. So I felt like I was going to die. But and that's the crazy thing about it. People are like, well, why do you do that? I don't know. I told myself I was going to quit after that marathon, and here I am not. I'm going to run more. In fact, I had the stupidest thing that you could have ever imagined coming up in July if it happens. So all the races in the spring got canceled. So we were supposed to run a half. We were supposed to run. I didn't have a full on the docket yet, but all the races got canceled except this one race in July. It's put on by the guy that puts on Barclays marathons. So if you watch Netflix, the Barclays marathons, this guy named Lazarus Lake, and Barclays is it's a multi-lap marathon race in the middle of East Tennessee mountains, where Brushy Mountain federal penitentiary used to be. And there's only been 17 people complete it in 20 something years. Anyway, they made a documentary about it. This other race he's doing is called the last annual Vol State 500K. So it's 500K, and to break that into miles for you, that's 314 miles. And you have 10 days to complete it. So you run from the top west corner of Tennessee, which ends up, you actually start in Missouri, take a ferry across, and then run through Kentucky and Tennessee to Georgia. And it's unsupported. There's no aid stations, and you just run it, and you stop where you can stop, and you get food where you can get food, and it's stupid, but we're doing it unless it gets canceled. And I have a group. We have a group. It's not a relay. We do it individually, but there's 4 of us that are going to do it together, and it's just dumb. But why? I don't know. It's an adventure. It's a challenge. It pushes your body to do things, which makes you mentally tougher. But really, probably more than anything, it's the community.
That's cool. And I played soccer in high school, so I kind of had to force myself to like running. And I run every now and then, and I've only ran one 5K, like any type of running thing. That's the only one, and it was the one at Lee. What's it called? Roses, something like that.
65 roses.
Yeah, I ran in that one, and I was like, I am never doing this again. And I would do that again, but after that, I was like, that was terrible. I couldn't even walk for a day. So yeah,
Yeah.
those are really that running's just always fascinated me, specifically with people that run, because it's like, why would you do this? It's such a stupid thing to do to your body.
Well, but your body can handle it. People
Mhm.
tell us, we have friends that get told all the time, well, your knees are going to be terrible. You're going to have problems. And the thing about it is running's keeping me in shape to keep me from being overweight on my knees, right? Or it helps prevent injuries and problems from happening in your body. I got one of my best friends that I run with is on a streak where he's run at least a mile a day for 2,000 days. We just celebrated that this week, and he is in best shape of his life, and he's going to run this fall state with us. But I got another friend I run with, and he's older, and he's run he's at 1,300 or 1,600 days, and he's significantly older than me, but he still trugs along and moves along, and we just feel like it's about health, it's about community, it's about adventure, it's a journey, and there are so many more benefits to it than worrying about if your knees are going to hurt when you turn 60, which I don't think mine will. I wear the right shoes too.
There's a YouTuber that I really like, and you probably heard of him, Casey Neistat. He's a huge runner. He like 90% of his vlogs contain running, and I remember he like talked about it in one episode of the vlog, and he's just like, "Why do I run?" He was like, "It helps me with my mind. It helps me think about what I'm gonna do for the day, like while I'm running, and it kind of just like gets my body like ready for the day." Is that how that is for you?
Yeah, I mean, we kick off the day. I'm a morning runner, so there are night runners and morning and midday runners and morning runners, and I'm a
Mhm.
morning runner. So we get up. Our run starts at 5:30 every morning. We do it 5 to 6 times a week as a group, and then those other days, the guys that are streaking, they do it. They do their own on those other days, but it helps us clear our mind. I use it as some prayer and meditation time, especially if I'm by myself. If I'm with the group, we solve the world's problems. We tend to get in heated arguments with each other over politics or theology or movies or whatever the conversation, sports, whatever the conversation is of the day. I mean, we're not always heated, but they can. If we get into politics, we have different viewpoints, and we like to hear from each other most of the time. Sometimes when we start hearing from each other, we go a whole lot faster than we plan on going, and but that's great way to start your day, and you're up early and you're just moving. I mean, if you read these books from these very successful CEOs or creatives or whatever, it's the key to it is getting up early and getting going and getting in a routine. This becomes our routine. In fact, while we've been sitting here, our group message went off saying we're running at 5:30, and we put the route in, and people are saying in, so we use a group me, and people are saying in, and we'll expect to see them there in the morning, and then we'll just go, and it's something to look forward to when you go to bed at night.
That's awesome. And that was actually gonna be my next question because um, I I consider myself a mildly healthy person, but I really need to get back into working out. That's like one of my biggest issues is just getting up and working out because that's kind of the only time I can work out is in the morning now. But it's just hard for me to get out of bed and be like, can I go to the gym, which I can't do right now. I have to do at home workouts, or I just have to run around my neighborhood. But how important do you think it is to, stay healthy and be active as a creative? Because I think it's very important that you keep your mind healthy as well.
Yeah, I mean, as creatives, we can get in a rut real easy. Like every time I've made a film, I get in a rut at some point, and what breaks me out of it is running or being active. You eat terrible when you're on deadlines and when you're trying to get projects done. I mean, during the COVID response stuff, I ate awful, but I was running still. So it counteracted it. And now I'm having to catch back up and try not to eat too bad while I'm running and pick up. But I think it keeps our brains going. And I think it keeps our bodies going, energized. Miles Matsuno, the guy I talked about earlier, made the first film with. We made a feature film together that's on a festival circuit now, but no festivals are actually running. They're all going virtual. But he runs. He's a madman runner. Like, that dude is fast. He runs marathons in 2.5 hours. My last one was 4.5 hours. I just want to break 4 hours. He's super fast, but he's so good at being creative too. And there's something to go along with that, the ability to be creative and keep your body balanced, both in what you eat and then also in how you treat it exercise wise. And we know a lot of creatives that aren't very healthy. And that's okay too. I'm not saying that you have to exercise to be a creative. I think it's just a benefit of exercise is the ability to think more clearly and be creative. For me, once I get up and exercise and I am doing my thing, my brain is working by 6 a.m. I'm ready to go. And so I want to go into the office that day and write or edit or shoot or whatever I'm going to do, and I'm just ready to go. And I think that's a side benefit of being healthy as well, living longer and having less health problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I want to get back into it is sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, I can't make anything today. Nothing is going to happen. But I'm like, man, that would be so different if I just got up and went for a run or did some push-ups or something.
And so to that note too, is when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working or I'm on a set and it gets really stressful or I get bogged down into what I'm doing, there's a lot of times I'll just get up and go walk. Now I can't run. I wear a suit most every day to work because I'm a corporate guy, but I'll get up and at least go walk. We have a new office, so I'll walk across the street to the comm building and walk back, or I'll walk down to the coffee shop, which has a running store in it, and I'll just walk through the running store, right? So the coffee shop's in the back and the running store's in the front. I'll walk through the running store, pick up a shoe, look at a piece of clothes I might want to buy, and I'm like, okay, all right. Drink my coffee, come back, and I'm re-energized. And it's a mix of exercise and taking my mind off of it. But I always feel like a walk in the middle of a creative process, and especially in a difficult situation, is beneficial. I was editing some music videos the last couple weeks, and I ran into a major issue where I was it was a Frankenstein track, and I was trying to move stuff around, and I just got bogged down in this one moment. I was like, I got to go. So I stood up, did a little exercise, did a little fast walking around the place, got a cup of coffee, got some water, came back, sat down, knocked it out. And you just got to take care of your body. When your mind gets overwhelmed, your body just wants to do something. So let it do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what I've been doing like almost every single day is I literally live in a little suburban neighborhood in Georgia, and it literally makes a circle. So I just walk around that circle and there's a big old greenway sidewalk outside of our neighborhood. And I'm like, I have to go. I cannot take this anymore. I'm going to take like a 30-minute break and just go walk or listen to music or something.
Yep, for sure. I put a little lo-fi beats, Spotify playlist, lo-fi beats. And then there's a couple other brain ones I listen to. And it just, it's just the rhythm of doing it. It's cool. I like it. It makes me feel good about being a creative when I can make my body and my mind get in sync with each other.
Mm. And you talking about editing reminded me of, you told me this story and you may not even remember this when I had you in class, but you told me about a story. You were editing something a long time ago and it was like a really long piece. You worked a really long time on it and the whole thing just like crashed the night before. Do you know the story?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. I've always wondered, like, what was it? Because you just kind of told it very vaguely.
It was a big promo. It was a big promo video for the university. Like, it was one of the premier things we do every 2 years. I think it was the celebration video, and the premiere project crashed and didn't save about 6 hours worth of work. I think is what it was.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up and it was a lot. Like, we'd done a lot in 6 hours. So I ended up coming in the next morning. I went home. If I remember right, I went home, went to bed for about 3 or 4 hours, got up about 4, came in when nobody was there and knocked it out in about 2 hours. So I remembered all the edits. So I got it all knocked out, and I believe that was the project. So there's been some interesting ones like that. Premiere's been good to me lately, but it did not used to be good to me. It would just crash on its own whenever it wanted to.
So, what advice would you give to people that, when your creative process and technology are just clashing and something like Premiere crashes at the last minute? How do you, be an adult, be responsible, and own up to it?
It's so tough. In my younger years, I've been known to throw things. Probably not the best response. Probably not the most professional response. But you just got to breathe and think through it and know that anything we do as creatives is not going to end anyone's life. It's not going to cause great harm if our project doesn't render out in time. It may cause us professional harm, but our physical well-being is going to be okay. And we cannot get tied up in the stresses of the moment, letting it just ruin who we are and our reputation and the professionalness. So I usually, if something like that happens, it's a big, and we've had some stuff like that happen recently. So it's a big, deep breath. It is a recalculation of what can be done. And it is just pure grit and drive to get it done, either in an alternative way or, through problem solving, or just to power through and get it redone as fast as you can. Sometimes technology is going to fail. It's always going to fail. So that's why you try to protect yourself with backups. You try to be redundant with things. But even when it fails, you've got to maintain your integrity and you've got to maintain your composure if you can at all costs. And, that's decent advice that's hard to follow even for myself because I get caught up in the moment as well.
Yeah, Premiere has been the bane of my existence sometimes, but it's also been one of the most valuable tools I've ever invested in.
Yeah.
But you got to work with what you have and just chug along through it. Nate Powers commented and said, "You stole my guest idea." That's my goal, Nate, is to beat you before you get any of the cool guests.
Well, I've taken over one of his streams when Clark Campbell was on there, and
I saw that. It was really funny.
So it's good. I love Nate. Nate's a great guy. You guys are all great content creators. I'm proud of every one of you. I saw that where Drew White's on here and Parker Berry and a bunch of people that used to be in our circle at different times. And I get so proud when I watch, wherever, YouTube or Twitter or Instagram, what you guys are doing with your lives and the creative work you're doing, or just what you're doing in your personal lives. And so I take a great personal pride in your successes. I and mourn failures, and I'm always pulling for all my former students, all the people who've ever worked for me, and it is one of the joys of my life to see each student that I had grow up into men and women who are doing their thing and doing it well. And that, man, you don't even know how much my heart swells when I see stuff like that.
Well, that means a lot that you would say that because, people like Nate and Parker Berry, they're doing really incredible things, and I'm glad that they're my friends. And for the longest time after I graduated, I was worried I was going to be one of those people that, got a job that wasn't even close to what their degree was. And I was like, man, I just felt like I was a failure for the first couple of years after I graduated. I was like, I feel like I let Jeff down and Doc Mo and Miss Dukes. And because I got a job in IT that I worked there for a whole year, and I was like, what am I doing? And then I got a call from the guy that owns the house that I live in, Nathan Mowry, and I moved in with him. He's like one of the coolest guys I know, one of the best filmmakers I know, and the rest is history. That's how I'm here. So thank you for, giving me those building blocks, those foundations of filmmaking and just teaching me about life sometimes. So I know I've said thank you like 60 times on this stream, but seriously, you mean a lot to me, Jeff.
Well, You mean a lot to me, Trevor, and I'm proud of you. And I want to tell you that the recruitment of you to Lee started well before you were at Lee. When I was sitting in the chair next to your mom, and your mom actually cut my hair a couple of times, and we would talk about movies with my hairdresser, Sandy. We talk about movies all the time, and your mom, she was like, "My son wants to make movies. He wants to do stuff. He's always making crazy things all the time. And can we get him to Lee? Is there something he can do at Lee?" And I just remember those conversations and be like, "Yeah, come on, bring him." And then I met you, and then you were doing crazy stuff, and you're still doing crazy stuff, but it's good, and it's you. Like, you have to be you. You're not going to be me. I'm not going to shape you into my mold. I want you to go out and do what you do. But like you said, I want to give you the building blocks and the foundation, and then also the place to kind of come back and ask for advice whenever you need to, or be a sounding board, or just let me critique stuff. I mean, I love doing that kind of thing. So I'm glad it makes me proud you bring me back on the show, because you don't have to say thank you 100 times. It's okay. Thank you for allowing me to have a platform to talk to people. I've never been on Twitch before. I've been on Facebook Live a couple of times, but I've never been on Twitch. So I appreciate my Twitch premiere being with Portable Trevor.
Heck yeah. We definitely got more views on Facebook. Let me check Twitch. I haven't looked at that yet, actually. Let's see, we got 2 views. Wow. But it's all good. That's not why I'm making this show. I'm making this show because I want to make good content and have a good conversation with people that mean a lot to me. My mom just commented and said, "I remember that conversation."
See that? Oh yeah, we had a few. It was good.
Well, that's great. I forgot that happened. I knew that you knew my mom because you cut your hair with Sandy, but that's cool. That's amazing. But Jeff, I think I'm gonna call it there. This was an amazing episode. I think we had a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to tell the people before we end it?
No, just keep sending those dank memes, as somebody would say out there, and I'll trying to figure out what they are.
I'll explain every single one of them. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you everybody for watching. Hope you have a blessed day. See you later.